You are Locked On Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Braves Postcast, the weekend update edition. As the Atlanta Braves have closed out opening weekend, and they did so by taking 2 out of 3 from their heated divisional rival, the Philadelphia Phillies. Even better than that, they did it on the road. Grant McAuley, Jake Mastroianni with you here on the Braves Postcast. Excited to bring you another season of this, as we've got lots to talk about in this episode about Saturday and Sunday's game. And of course, we'll be getting you set for the next trip, which will be to not so sunny Chicago, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. As always, the Braves Postcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Leave us those likes and comments right here on YouTube. Make sure you share the video with a friend. That helps the channel grow. And subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Head over to FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Jake, great to be back with you. A new season of Braves baseball and a series win under their belts. Not a bad way to get things started.
Not bad at all, especially against a rival, and you're on the road, as you said. I mean, you'll take all of those that you can get, and the way that they did it, especially the first 2 games in somewhat dominating fashion, a really fun weekend.
Yeah, I know we're here on the Braves Postcast. We are going to talk about what happened on Sunday. Atlanta unable to hold on in a 5-4 loss to the Phillies. Really one of the only down notes of the weekend outside of the Sean Murphy injury news. But overall, you will take 2 out of 3 against a team, especially one as tough as the Phillies have played the Braves in recent memory. And keeping in mind the not-so-fun fact that the Braves have opened up in Philadelphia before, and it has gone incredibly wrong a couple of times. So the comeback win in Game 1 on opening day, we talked about here on the postcast a couple of days ago, I thought really kind of indicative, Jake, of who this Braves club is, the fact that they're never out of it. I mean, a 2-run game, I'm not really worried about that at any point in time because they are that sudden, and they put 7 runs up in the 8th inning to break a 2-2 tie. Adam Duvall was in the middle of stuff. A lot of good things we saw from opening day, and it really kind of rolled over into Saturday. We can talk a little bit about Max Fried in just a moment, but overall, from the offensive perspective, Jake, it's kind of exactly what we expected from the club that was returning a historic offense from a year ago.
And these were games started by Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. Now, they didn't get to Zach Wheeler, but, I mean, they did at least knock him out of the game early and get to that bullpen. But this offense has shown you already a lot of what we saw last year from this team, and you already kind of used the note there. They keep coming, and it's just, they're going to break through at some point during a game. There's going to be that big hit, that big opportunity for them to get that big hit, and that's just what they did in the opening day, especially. And then again on Saturday, like you said, Max Fried getting knocked out in the first inning, offense just goes to work and puts up a big number. So that's what you love about this lineup. Again, we talked about it a lot last year. We're going to talk about it again this year. It's just top to bottom. At some point, somebody is going to get this team an opportunity to win the game and sometimes put the game away like they did in the first 2 games of this series. It's why it's one of the best offenses in all of baseball once again.
It's kind of the beauty of this offense as well, is that it's not relying on 1 or 2 guys, even 3 guys, to be in charge of taking care of all the big hits or the big moments or starting the big rallies. You can get it started toward the bottom of the order, as we've seen time and again. Somebody could come off the bench with a big hit the way Adam Duvall did in the first game. And I think that kind of underscored with the signing of Duvall that he is a weapon and is somebody that they can rely on. But I thought it was kind of fun, and I'm jumping ahead here to Sunday, but Jared Kelenic came off the bench on Sunday, came through with an extra base hit to start a rally and score a run as well. Jake, I think we could see a lot between these 2 guys of maybe they don't start the game, but they might have an opportunity to affect things before it's all said and done.
Yeah, a lot of people worried about the left field spot coming into the year, and it's 3 games. I get it, but yeah, big weekends from both guys. Adam Duvall, and talk about the late additions in spring training. Adam Duvall already had a big moment. Jesse Chavez already had a big moment. But yes, the pair of Duvall and Kelenic, and again, a 3-game series, but a pretty big one against your division rival, and both of them having huge moments. And Jared Kelenic, not 2 weeks ago, a lot of people getting really worried about him in left field and what he could look like from a slow start to spring training. But that last week of spring training, you start to see some adjustments being made, making some better contact. And again, early, we're going to say that a lot now, but those adjustments seems to have carried into the to the opening weekend series for the Atlanta Braves. And if he gets going, again, we already talked about this lineup top to bottom, but if he can do that in front of Acuna, in the top of that order, it's going to make this Braves lineup just continue to be that more deadly. So big moments from Kelenic over the weekend, big moments from Duvall, as you mentioned. But again, Duvall and Chavez, those late additions to spring training, already paying dividends.
Yeah, and I want to get to Jesse Chavez in a minute, but in left field, we saw both of those guys come through offensively. We saw them make some nice plays defensively as well. So you really kind of got an idea of what this could be having these two out there. And it's not getting one takes away from the other or vice versa. I really think that this could be one of the better quote unquote platoons that the Braves have had recently, just based on the offensive expectations that I think folks are going to have from knowing who Adam Duvall is and also who they hope Jared Kelenic is going to be. And I'm not planting the flag on 3 games of a season any more than I'm going to say that spring training should have led you to make, serious takeaways about Jared Kelenic ability to hit or not hit. But 5 for 7 with a walk, 0 strikeouts for Kelenic, who came through with a pinch hit double in Sunday's game after a 3-hit game on Saturday, and was 1 for 2 and got a base hit in his first at bat as a Brave. So a good start, a good first impression. Now you just want to build on all of that. Let's talk about another new Brave in Chris Sale, who started on Sunday. Of course, his day went a little bit better than Max Fried's did, and we'll get to Max a little bit later when we talk about the overall weekend. But I think you had to like a lot of what you saw from Chris Sale. He worked out of some trouble, 5 1/3 innings for him, 5 hits, couple of runs, both earned, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts for him. Made a mistake pitch to Kyle Schwarber, but in true fashion, in that ballpark, you got to shrug that off real quick. And I thought Chris Sale did an outstanding job of showing you exactly who he is. And that's the ultra competitor, Chris Sale, with the big strikeout stuff.
And that's exactly what it is. I mean, the strikeout stuff to get out of those jams, the bases loaded situation in the 5th was huge to keep the Braves in that game. Looked like maybe he was starting to tire a little bit, came back out for the 6th, gave up that loud out, and then got pulled from the game, which is probably the right call, though.
Sure.
Call there, even at 83 pitches. But you're getting to see that Chris Sale that we were hoping to get, just that ultimate competitor going out there, giving everything that he has. You talked about the fact, what he said coming out of the game on the mound there to his teammates. I mean, you love to see that from Chris Sale. Just, again, early, small sample, but it's exactly the Chris Sale, the version of him that we were hoping we were going to get. And I think it's going to be huge for the Braves this year if he stays healthy. And that's obviously a big if for him and pretty much every pitcher. But for Chris Sale, his first outing with the Braves, I thought it couldn't have gone much better other than him obviously getting the win.
Yeah, and I think that he pitched well enough to win, as did Spencer Strider in this series on opening day. And the Braves offense is going to give these guys plenty of chances to have that opportunity. Now, the pitcher who picked up the win in game 2 of the series on Saturday with 3 big innings of relief was not on the Braves roster a week ago. We didn't know, what the bullpen was going to look like for sure over the course of the 162. But who knew there was going to be a late addition, and it was going to be that familiar face. It was Jesse Chavez. He came home when Max Fried was forced to throw 43 pitches, and I say forced, and I mean forced, because he should have been out of that inning with one of the worst blown calls I have ever seen. It turned into a 3-run frame for the Phillies. I think that it robbed Max of the opportunity to get back to the dugout, reset, and come back out and have a better start. But be that as it may, Jesse Chavez took those lemons and made some pretty nice lemonade for the Braves. And the offense, well, they provided a whole lot of the sweet stuff, and it turned into a winning recipe, if you get what I'm saying.
It did. And I mean, Jesse Chavez just in a Braves uniform. I mean, I don't know. He just turns into a different person in a Braves uniform. And it's great for this Braves team because you had to have it, second game of the year, and you lose Max Fried in the first inning. And Jesse Chavez is able to come in and kind of bridge that gap, what ultimately turns into a bullpen game that could have some effect on Sunday's game and the way things were managed. But either way, Chavez, what he was able to do to come in like that and give the Braves the length in the innings, it's just something that we've come to count on from him for years now when he's come over for the Braves. And it just, again, it's one of those games in the middle of 162 that you look back at and you say, how huge was that in the second game of the year where you already don't have a lot of innings or your pitches for your starters, for him to come in and kind of bridge that gap like that when a starter has to leave early. It really just was so big. And for him to not just have those innings, but one run over those 3 innings and allow the Braves offense to go to work and come back in that game and ultimately pull away. So again, I've run out of things to say about Jesse Chavez and just what he's able to do in a Braves uniform, but it's moments like that throughout, like I said, 162 that I just love to have from Jesse Chavez. Just one of those moments.
You just love those little stories and the guys that come in and they're kind of I don't know if I can call him an unsung hero because we've sung a lot of praises for Jesse Chavez at this point, but to come in and do that, you don't want to have to cover 8 1/3 innings out of your bullpen on day 2 of the regular season or any part of the season, honestly. And he made that palatable. He made it work. And the Braves bullpen, for the most part in this series, made everything work because the offense took care of everything else. So just a couple of takeaways from the weekend. Obviously, on the pitching side of things, we got some more offensive stuff to talk about, and we're going to get into what went wrong on Sunday, a little bit more perhaps about the work behind the plate that Travis d'Arnaud is going to be doing with Sean Murphy out. And of course, we're going to be getting you set for that series against the Chicago White Sox. We'll do all of that as the Braves postcast continues. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney, whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed. It's time to go dancing with America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get a $200 bonus bet if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. It's all out there for you. It's all up to you. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Let's jump back into things here with the weekend wrap-up edition of the Braves postcast. Saturday, a win for Atlanta, a big-time win. 12-4 was the final score. Sunday, a one-run loss as the Phillies scored 3 times in the 7th inning to overcome the Braves, who fall by a 5-4 score. As the old saying goes, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. The Braves will most definitely take it, and there were some positives to take out of Sunday's game, and most certainly a lot of positives to take out of the weekend. Jake, I talked about this a lot on opening day, but we didn't know all the details yet. Got some information back on Sean Murphy, the fact that his left oblique strain is a grade 1 strain, which means it is the least serious of those. But we know with oblique injuries, you can't rush it. The best thing that you can do, and the only thing really you can do, is rest and get ready. But hopefully the Braves won't be without Sean Murphy for too long. That, at least Brian Snitker said, was some good news if they had to lose him, to know that maybe he could be back sooner than later.
Yeah, I hate it for Sean Murphy. I was really excited for his season. And again, it's not over. At least we hope it's not. And hopefully he is back sooner rather than later. But I thought this was going to be the year, kind of like the second year for Matt Olson, where first year was really good, but second year really felt like he could take off. I thought that was going to be the same thing. Still think so. I don't want to talk like it's over, but was really looking forward to this season for Sean Murphy. And hopefully he gets back soon. But with Travis d'Arnaud behind him, it does leave you that insurance to take things slow, make sure that he's fully ready when he comes back, because you do have Travis d'Arnaud and Chadwick Trump, who's a really solid third catcher as well in the Braves depth right there. So good depth at catcher allows you to take out one of the better catchers in all of baseball, and you still feel pretty okay at the position. But certainly the Braves want Sean Murphy back and behind the plate for that defense and that powerful bat that he has. So again, take it slow, make sure he's okay, but get him back in that lineup soon, because I'm expecting big things from Sean Murphy this year once he's healthy.
Yeah, and Sean Murphy, obviously a big part of everything that the Braves are looking to do in terms of handling that pitching staff. But you mentioned having somebody like Travis d'Arnaud, who I've talked about on this show and on From the Diamond, my show that I do here in Atlanta. There are a lot of clubs out there. I'd say half the league would love to have Travis d'Arnaud as their starting catcher. The Braves, it's kind of an embarrassment of riches in that regard, because Murphy can handle the bulk of it. Travis d'Arnaud can handle the rest. And if somebody happens to go down, you feel very good about the other one handling things for as long as they need to. And hopefully it won't be for too terribly long. Jake mentioned the roster move. Chadwick Trump up from AAA Gwinnett. He got to start on Sunday behind the plate for Chris Sale as well. And a lot of folks, I think, were kind of wondering, how much do these guys work together in spring training? You'd be surprised, but quite a bit. And just good to see Chadwick Trump be in this system and familiar with these pitchers, and somebody that you can call on for some continuity, because he's been in the Braves system for quite a while now. And I think they're very happy with the opportunity to at least have a capable backup who knows the starting staff as well. And any offense you get in this case is, no pun intended, is an absolute bonus in that regard. Speaking of offense for the Braves, though, in this series, Jake, if I told you Atlanta was going to hit .339 with 17 extra base hits and score 25 runs, you'd probably be pretty happy with that output in the first series. And you probably wouldn't be surprised, given the Braves starting 9 and the lofty expectations they set with all the slugging and records that they broke last year.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy to say, even against the Phillies, you probably wouldn't be surprised. But what I love is the fact that they just, as I mentioned earlier, they just keep coming and getting to that Phillies bullpen, who has some good arms. And they got to the bullpen in every game. Unfortunately, didn't quite get enough on Sunday. But still, the offense just putting up big numbers, picking up right where they left off from last regular season. Unfortunately, didn't carry that over into the postseason. Right. But, I mean, this offense just continues to be built, to pound out a lot of hits, a lot of extra base hits, a lot of doubles in the first two. Didn't homer on opening day, which I'm sure, is a surprise for a lot of Braves fans when they don't homer, but still able to put up a bunch of runs. It's just what we've come to expect from them and why we think they're going to be one of the better offenses again. But top to bottom, again, just really getting it done against a really good pitching staff. And the Phillies are going to have a really good pitching staff this year, but this Braves offense is just when they're going and they're locked in, as they seem to be this past weekend, they can score against anybody.
Yeah, they definitely can. And they showed that throughout the course of the first couple of days. Even if you don't get to the starter, which they did to Aaron Nola, maybe not so much with Zach Wheeler, but finding their opportunities and really cashing in, that turned into a couple of victories for the Braves in this one. Jake mentioned 9 runs on opening day, 0 home runs. I don't know if I had that on my bingo card, but it'll work. The Diamondbacks scored 14 runs in an inning with no home runs. That's another oddity that was going on opening day, but it has nothing to do with this game. But as you looked at the second night, or the second day of the year, it was a homer-happy Braves offense. Ozzie Albies, Michael Harris, Marcell Ozuna, and Matt Olson all leaving the yard. And then Ozzie Albies got the Braves scoring started again on Sunday, second consecutive game as the second batter with a 2-run homer. So a lot of good stuff was happening in the long ball department. And I'm not surprised to see Ozzie Albies in the midst of it. And I know there's a lot of jokes about where he falls in the top 10 second baseman of Major League Baseball on some lists. And let me tell you, he should be on there and he should be higher than 5. But the Braves know exactly what they've got, and they are very happy to have Ozzie Albies and his offensive firepower and potential manning second base for them and a run-producing spot in their lineup as well.
They are, and from each side as well, Saturday and Sunday, hitting a home run from each side. 2-run homer, those first inning runs again, as the Braves were so good at last year, obviously with Ronald setting the table there. But Ozzie, what he's able to do, I mean, again, list aside, whatever computer-generated list you want to put out there, I don't know how you look at Ozzie Albies and not think that he's one of the best offensive second basemen, all-around second baseman, however you want to say it. He's at least top 5, if not top 3. And I'm sure there's some people, Braves fans, would want to put him at the top right there. But to get up to a good year and what he's able to do, I mean, it's 25 to 30 home runs just about every year for Ozzie Albies when he's healthy, batting in the second spot in that order for this Braves lineup, bringing the thunder. You look right behind him with Riley and Olson, and you don't want to get to those guys with runners on. And Ozzie's just sitting there in the middle between Acuna and those big bats as well. And it seems to be a perfect spot for him after moving there middle late of last year.
Yeah, and whether or not he ends up hitting second or they drop him down in the order, he has more RBI opportunities there. I still think Michael Harris, who, by the way, had a great first series and I think had even more fun on his social media messing with Phillies fans afterwards, but had a great first series. I think he could see some time at the top of the order. You and I talked about that on one of the editions of Locked On Braves as well, with kind of our season predictions of who might have a big year. I think Michael Harris, not to spoil the ending of everything, may end up having one of the best years of anybody wearing a Braves uniform. A little bit more about Max Fried. I did want to kind of touch on this for a moment. 43 pitches and was not able to get out of the first inning in his start. I heard the comments after the game. I mean, clearly, there's only so much you can say about not getting a call, but that affected everything for him. I know he wasn't sharp. I know he issued a couple of more walks. I know the job as a pitcher is to figure out a way to get out of trouble, and he was unable to do that. But I just couldn't help but feel like had Max Fried gotten, and again, it was one of the worst blown calls I've seen. Had he gotten that, I think we would have seen a very different outcome in that start for the Braves lefty, one that would have allowed him to at least get that reset and get back out there in the second inning and get back to work, maybe dial things in.
That's the thing, too. If this were a young guy, I maybe wouldn't have felt that way. But being somebody like Max Fried, yes, it was a rough first inning for him. He was struggling with command, but he's somebody that he can feel that out throughout a game, and he can make adjustments and get going. I mean, there's no question in my mind they could have settled things down. 40-plus pitches in the first inning, or 30-plus if he would have gotten out of that with the strikeout of Castellanos. He wasn't going to go very deep, but I feel like he could have probably given you another 2-3 innings at least to cover that gap, and it saves the bullpen for that game. Maybe helps the bullpen on Sunday as well, but that was taken away from him. When is that challenge system going to get here, Grant? I know they're testing it out in the minors, but that just feels like a perfect solution right now for Major League Baseball for situations like that, where you cannot miss those calls in that spot. I mean, that is game altering. It is series altering. I talked about, again, maybe affect a day later for the Braves bullpen, but to not be able to get out of that, and it leads to 3 runs for the Phillies. And yes, as you said, Max has to make the pitches and settle down even after that happens, but he should have been out of it. I mean, he should have been out of it without giving up anything. He should have still been in the game. and he wasn't. So it's just a tough break for Max, but I'm sure he's going to bounce back, maybe getting the home opener next Friday in front of his fans here in Atlanta. But a rough first start of the year for Max Fried.
Yeah, and I do think, I mean, Max is a guy who's shown time and again the ability to make some adjustments, and he wasn't getting hit hard. It was just a matter of not having the command dialed in where he needed it to be, but it would help if you throw it right down the middle, belt high, if it's called a strike. It was just one of those little things I've learned from watching baseball for the last 3+ decades. Be that as it may, we're going to stick a pin in all those discussions. I'm sure umpires and strike zones and all those things will come up again, and we'll talk about robots and whatever else we need to in order to make ourselves feel a little bit better about it. But when we continue on the Braves Postcast, we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming up for Atlanta. The road trip will continue. They'll head to Chicago to take on the White Sox, who they will see for a 3-game series. And then it's home to take on the Arizona Diamondbacks as the Braves will begin their home slate at Truist Park in front of what is sure to be a raucous crowd on April the 5th. All of that and more coming your way next on the Braves Postcast. All right, Jake, let's turn our attention to the rest of the road trip for this Braves team because they do have another 3-game series. The weather looks a little bit, well, maybe a lot bit bad up in Chicago. Not really baseball weather, let's call it that. Maybe some rain, maybe some sleet, going to be in the 30s. Maybe it gets into the 40s. I don't know why we're playing baseball in Chicago in the first week of April. I'm not saying they should move their teams, but goodness, maybe they could play a couple of road series and then come home. Regardless, though, that aside, scheduling aside, strike zones aside, the Braves are going to play a baseball game. They plan to, weather permitting, on Monday. They're going to have Charlie Morton on the mound. They're also going to throw Reynaldo Lopez and Spencer Strider in this series. I'm interested to see, what Charlie Morton looks like as he comes out for his age 40 season. I think it was a good deal for the Braves to get him back. We'll see some of Reynaldo Lopez, who we can talk about in a moment, who should know all about pitching in Chicago since he's done it for years. And then we're going to see Spencer Strider again. So a good pitching for the Braves, some good hitting. Maybe they can bring home another series win and really get this season started out on the right foot with a winning road trip.
Yeah, you got a good chance of doing that against a White Sox team that just got swept by the Tigers. They're obviously in a bit of a rebuild over there, so it's an opportunity to pick up some wins. But worry about Charlie Morton a little bit just with the curveball if the weather is bad, trying to get a grip on that thing. But I am looking forward to Charlie Morton this year and seeing what he can do. Obviously, you know, he's down in the pecking order. I mean, he's a 4th starter now. And I think that's probably appropriate for Charlie Morton, who could be a 2 or a 3 on a lot of other teams, but there's just doesn't seem to be as much pressure on him now to be that top of the rotation guy that maybe the Braves have needed him to be the last couple of years. But really looking forward to his season, what Reynaldo Lopez can do. And obviously anytime Spencer Strider takes the mound as they face the 4A Braves team. There's a lot of former Braves players on that team. Watch Soroka over the weekend. Looks like the Braves are just going to miss him in this series. But again, going up against a White Sox team, a little bit downtrodden and a bit of a rebuild over there. Just don't let Luis Robert beat you. He had a couple home runs on Saturday, their best player over there. But can't wait to see the Braves hopefully get to play in Chicago this coming up week.
Yeah, it would be nice to go ahead and get in all the games as they're scheduled, but I can't help but think about when they were up at Wrigley Field, 5 years ago, and that whole nasty weather situation that took a game that the Braves probably should have won pretty easily to a game in which I know I talked to Peter Moylan about it, and he's like, I couldn't feel the ball, couldn't feel my hand, had no idea what was going on. Probably not ideal baseball weather. Hopefully they won't end up in that situation again. You mentioned Charlie Morton, and last year, 2023, was kind of an up and down year for him. He kind of got on track there toward the middle of the year, gets hurt at the end, and is unable to pitch in the postseason. But 14-12 with a 3.64 ERA at age 39, 183 punch outs and 163 in the third innings, 83 walks. Does give up the occasional home run, but when you're looking at 4th starters across baseball and you're looking at the price of free agent starters, let me point that out. Charlie Morton coming back on that $20 million option just seemed to make sense for me for the Atlanta Braves. I am a little bit curious as we go through the season, even though Max Fried and Chris Sale went consecutively to start the year, if there won't be some kind of rotational adjustment where Charlie Morton ends up splitting the left-handers, but that's an adjustment the Braves could make as we go on in the season. It's certainly not one that they have to make because Sale and Fried are different enough in their pitch styles that I don't know that it affects all that much. But if you did want to break them up, Charlie Morton will still miss some bats. Could be a good option for that.
Would be. And like you said, Charlie Morton, you read off those numbers there. One thing he's definitely done for the Braves over the years is give them innings. And I think that's certainly something you count on from Charlie Morton to go out there and give you 5-6 innings and keep you in the ball game. But if there is one concern with Charlie Morton, it is the walks and the homers, as you mentioned. But overall, I mean, he gets the strikeouts, he gets the swings and misses. He has the stuff to get himself out of those jams when he does struggle with command and walk some batters. And it's a good opponent. It's a good matchup for him to hopefully get on the right track in 2024.
Yeah, I do think that a lot of things line up for it. Hopefully the weather will cooperate and Charlie Morton will get to go out and have a good first start. And the Braves offense could get to work early and get him some runs as well. They'll be facing Chris Flexen, a righty who had some success in Seattle for a couple of years, but really fell on hard times last year. A 6.86 ERA between Seattle and Colorado in 2023 in just over 100 innings, but very solid. In 2021, he was 14-6. And in 2022, he was also a pretty good, back into the rotation starter for the Mariners, who have a lot of young guns who have come up, and Chris Flexen kind of out of their plans. But the White Sox, I think they're just kind of looking for pitching wherever they can get it. So if somebody's had a modicum of success, maybe bring them over and try to figure out what they can get. But it's patchwork. As you mentioned, they're in a rebuild, and they took a flyer, obviously, on Michael Soroka, who pitched against the Tigers over the weekend, I believe on Saturday. So he's not lined up to pitch in this series. Kind of a rough start for Michael in that one. And, after they traded Dylan Cease, you knew things were going to start to get a little bit different and perhaps a little more tough for the White Sox to find the pitching that they need here in 2024.
It will be, and especially going up against this lineup, those pitchers are going to be not too excited. They're going to be hoping the weather helps them out a little bit to keep the balls in the yard. But this offense going up against anybody, but especially a White Sox pitching staff, not a lot of veterans on that team with a lot of success. Although I'll say Garrett Crochet, who's going to pitch game 2 of this series, was really good on opening day for the White Sox. Big lefty, throws really hard, big stuff. He is definitely somebody to watch out for in this series. And that's the game going up against Ronaldo Lopez. So that could be, if you're looking at one of these games in this series, that could be really difficult for the Braves. I'd look for that game 2 in the series with Lopez and Crochet. But certainly Flexen, don't know who's going to pitch on Wednesday at this point for the White Sox, but an opportunity for this Braves offense to really feast on some pitching that just, again, doesn't have a lot of experience at the major league level.
Yeah, no, they don't. And it's going to be interesting to see Ronaldo Lopez transitioning back into the starting role. Seemed to do fine, seemed to be pretty comfortable with it in the spring, but now all of a sudden it's going to be 85 pitches, maybe more. And is he going to be comfortable doing that? And then how is he going to bounce back? And is it going to be something that allows him to give the Braves the best value for the 3-year, $30 million contract they signed him for? I thought he was going to be one of those bullpen options, but the Braves felt like at the start of the year, giving him that opportunity to start makes the most sense because you could get him ramped up in spring training, and we're going to see what he's able to do. But it's been, since 2021, since he got regular starts, and I believe that was in the first half. Then he moved to the bullpen where he had a ton of success. So we'll see if he's able to miss bats at the same rate that he did out of the bullpen for the White Sox most prominently, and pitched for another couple of teams last year, because I don't know what they were doing, just sending him and Lucas Giolito everywhere together in every single trade that goes on for these two guys. It's kind of a fun, random fact of baseball. But be that as it may, it'll be interesting to see Ronaldo Lopez first start and first appearance in a Braves uniform. And then always fun to see Spencer Strider. He'll close things out as the Braves and White Sox will open up that 3-game series. They'll do so at 2:10 on Monday afternoon with game 1, Charlie Morton against Chris Flexen. Jake, before we get out of here, as you watch the first weekend of Braves baseball in 2023, any other takeaways from this club and taking a series against the Philadelphia Phillies? As I said at the open, not a bad way to start things out.
Not a bad way at all. I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, but just Michael Harris and what he was able to do. I know we both were really high on him coming into the year. I thought the bullpen was fantastic. I know Aaron Bummer had a couple of rough outings, but overall, I mean, we talked a lot about Chavez, but Jimenez was good. Pierce Johnson looked good. Iglesias in his 1 inning looked good. Tyler Matzik looked good. Dylan Lee, 2 scoreless innings as well. So I thought the bullpen, for the most part, was fantastic on the weekend and had to cover a lot of innings because of that game on Saturday. So give another nod to the bullpen.
Yeah, the bullpen was big against the Philadelphia Phillies in that series. Had to cover 4 innings in game 1, 8 1/3 innings in game 2, and then we're able to kind of close things out, though it did get away from Aaron Bummer in the finale of the series. Braves picking up 2 out of 3 against Philadelphia in that set, though. They will certainly take that and the momentum that it gives them on to Chicago to face the White Sox in a 3-game series that begins on Monday, and we will have you covered right here on the Braves Postcast after those games. That brings us to the end of this edition, though, of the Braves Postcast. As always, we appreciate you riding along with us. Make sure that you're subscribed to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube. You will get every episode of the show there. You can leave us likes and comments, share the show with a friend, and help the channel grow. And make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts. You get the audio edition of the Postcast, plus everything that Jake has for you all season long. Lots of great Braves talk and lots more ahead of us this year. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. We'll catch you next time on the Braves Postcast. And until then, so long, everyone.